Hi, I'm Alan Berkson. I am the Global Director of Community Outreach and Analyst Relations at Freshworks. I am joined today by the CIO of Freshworks, Prasad Ramakrishnan, and we're going to be talking about how do you ensure business continuity in times of crisis, and what's the role of IT. So Prasad, welcome.
Thank you, Alan, and hi, everyone.
So given these unprecedented times, how do you see the role of IT in ensuring business continuity?
So, Alan, if you look at it, we live in a pretty connected world. We are completely dependent on computers than ever before, and it's not just laptops and desktops, but also mobile devices. And if you look at what IT does, IT is a significant enabler of business outcomes. We provide the technology platform using which the business is able to achieve the outcomes that it desires. And IT, thanks to the nature of their role, we do a lot of project management in terms of our day-to-day function, whether it be project management for bringing on new sites, whether it's project management to bring up new applications. We also do incident management. There is level 1, level 2 teams that are part of IT that take care of responding to end user issues and triaging issues and making sure that the issues are brought to resolution. And we also take care of disaster recovery as part of our job function. We make sure that the data centers that we have, the business services that IT provides to our business users, we have disaster recovery plans as part of our standard operating procedures. So while it's fair to say that IT plays a very significant role in terms of enabling business outcomes, I would like to add that business continuity planning is not just the responsibility of IT, but is an enterprise-wide responsibility.
So for companies who are planning to put a business continuity plan in place, what's your 2 cents? Where do you start? And how do they go about it? And it's funny to ask this question now because most companies are probably already inside they're doing their BCP. They're doing the business continuity plan right now. But from a broad perspective, where do they start? How do they go about it?
Yeah, and it's a question that's so relevant in the crisis mode that we are all in, right? Let's take a step back and see how most companies / practitioners would have actually developed their business continuity plan, right? Most people start off with, first of all, most people don't think that BCP is important, and the ones that are required to do it as part of either their SOC2 filing or as part of other compliance-related initiatives, what they do is they go to Google and search for it, or go to SANS Institute and look for a template, and take that and then make some slight modifications to that and try to make that look like what their BCP plan is. Because in the past, what it used to be was, I need a document to show that I have a business continuity plan, right? And this is not abnormal. This is pretty much applicable for 80–90% of the people that are out there. But what people may have forgotten in that aspect is the BCP plan is not a standard template where you take one common brush and apply it to all organizations. The BCP plan is unique to your organization. It's unique to your employees. It's unique to the type of business you are in, and unique to your customers, right? So each company, when you think about the BCP plan, you need to think about what is it that I need to do from a company perspective to ensure that I provide continuity for my employees, continuity for my customers, continuity for my stakeholders, right? And the other aspect is that the disaster that we have right now is more a medical disaster, right? It's a virus that originated in one place, spread from there to other parts of the world, and now it's a worldwide pandemic, right? And this has now triggered an economic and a business crisis. Companies and the countries are trying to figure out what is it going to do to their GDP, etc. But think about the impacts here. We still have internet connectivity. If you open the faucet, water is still flowing. You still have food that's available. But what if this were a different type of a disaster, a different type of a worldwide event where let's say it's a tsunami, or it's a flood, or
an earthquake, or fires, or everything, all the other types of disasters that can possibly happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and the sad thing is, all of these have happened just in the last 10 years. There were floods in India. There were floods in different parts of the world. There was a tsunami where, in Southeast Asia where thousands of people died, right? So when you talk about a BCP, today, most companies have responded to this type of an emergency where it's a medical disaster, whereas some of the services that are required for you to continue your BCP are still available. We still have food, we still have electricity, we still have internet connectivity and so on. What
Right.
if none of these are available? You need to now plan and make sure that you have the appropriate way to respond to that type of a situation, right? One of the things which I'm sure many of you have done during this time is watching a lot of Netflix, and I did a lot of binge watching on Designated Survivor. There was a reason why Tom Kirkman was kept away from Capitol Hill when the State of the Union was going on, right? And that's the reason why there is continuity of government. So from a federal government perspective, they look at ways by which, how do I ensure continuity of government when there is a disaster that strikes.
So business
Right.
continuity is not just about technology.
It's definitely not just about technology. It is about, do we have the right processes to enable us to continue the business? And let me give you an example, right? The easiest thing for us to say is, hey, all of us have laptops and all of us have internet connectivity. So we are very, very good to go in from a BCP mode, but it doesn't end there. Think about from a business operations perspective, you're still going to have vendors sending you receipts, printed receipts to your office. How do we take care of taking those receipts and scanning them and bringing them into your system so that we can continue to pay our vendors? You cannot have the supply chain of paying our vendors stop. You're still going to have employees that are going to join the business. How are we going to ensure that the new employees that are joining the business, how are we going to handle them, right? You're going to have people leaving the business. How are we going to take care of exits during this time, right? How are we going to make sure that we collect the assets that are company assets that have been deployed to these employees and make sure that the safety and security of company information and customer information is all maintained, right? So these are all aspects which people may tend to overlook, which is what will get us into a secondary disaster situation once we unpack from the current disaster situation.
So it sounds like you need to have a combination of understanding what's critical to running your business, as well as the types of disasters that would potentially disrupt those critical people, processes, or tools.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, when you look at it from a scope of impact, look at it whether the scope of the disaster is a local disaster, such as an earthquake, or a regional disaster, such as an earthquake or a flood, or is it a national disaster? So if you look at it from the origins of the current disaster that we are in, it started out as a disaster in China, and China went through its own recovery operations, and then it spread to parts of Europe, then spread to parts of the United States, and now it's pretty much all over the world, right? So it was actually more a regional and a national issue initially, which then very soon escalated to become a global issue. So the scope of the impact is one thing you want to look at. And then the second aspect you want to look at from a BCP planning is, what is the scope of the affected services? Do we have the facilities? Do we still have access to the various facilities? Do we have access to a reliable network? Do you still have access to computing devices? Do you still have access to your shipping providers, right? So these are things that you need to now plan and put into a matrix to find out what is it that has affected you? How do you respond to this particular issue? And what do you need to do to address business continuity?
So getting something that's very near and dear to my heart, which is Freshworks. How have you gone about ensuring business continuity at Freshworks?
Yeah. So the good news from Freshworks perspective, I would say, if there's even a usage of the
good
word.
News may not be the right term, but yeah. But
yeah, if that's
right.
That may not be the most appropriate term. But from a preparedness perspective, we are a SaaS first company. And what do I mean by that? Pretty much all the infrastructure that we deploy to our employees and all the business services that we provide to our employees are all deployed using a cloud first paradigm, meaning you could actually be sitting in the office or actually be sitting in a beach in Hawaii and still access the same type of services, because you do not have the necessity for employees to come into our physical facilities or come into our facilities using what we call as a VPN, a virtual private network, right? So from a from a business services that were deployed to our employees, we already had the SaaS first and the cloud first model. The second is from a point of view of preparedness for this, we actually started, we already had a business continuity plan in place. And then even before the situation escalated to the state that it is in right now, we actually went into what we call as an optional work from home to test the waters to find out, is there something that we need to do to adjust the types of services that are being provided by the various functions? And by various functions, I mean finance, HR, IT, legal, etc. Right? So these are all the supporting functions that keep the business running. So we went about doing an optional work from home to quickly identify, are there any gaps in our plans? The third thing we did is looked at it from a supply chain perspective. There is going to be a mad rush to go and get computers and accessories, very similar to the mad rush that people did, where the number of toilet papers and toilet tissues that were bought during this during this, right? I'm sure all of you read about that. And, right. So similar to that, businesses were going through a mad rush in terms of trying to go buy computers, were trying to buy accessories so that they can now stock on all of these things. So we actually got a little bit of a head start because we anticipated that there is going to be a worldwide impact and started planning for that.
But it's also, we knew what tools we needed to do the job. One thing about Freshworks, I'll mention 2 points. One is, as part of our onboarding, we issue laptops. So it wasn't about taking your desktop and carrying it home to work from home. We have a laptop. If you're doing, you can be in your office, you can be in home. The other thing I found interesting, and maybe just a brief second before we wrap up, is you have to be aware of where you are in the world. We take here, I'm in North America. In the US, we take internet bandwidth for granted. I know that we took some steps even for our employees to make sure that we had that as well, right?
That's absolutely right. And so as an example of that, we got the MiFi dongles, which is basically a secondary internet for the people that need a secondary, more reliable internet in case the primary is not available. Because think about it, Alan. Even in the US, we have the big providers who provide us ISP coverage at home. They had done a capacity planning based on a certain number of people connecting from home at the same time. But right now, we are taking we are putting their capacity to the test, right? With all of us connecting from home, the AT&Ts of the world, the Comcasts of the world, the Geos of the world, the Reliances of the world, their network capacity is being taxed to the maximum, right?
I could tell you my coworkers are using a lot of video bandwidth. we all have them right now. Hey, Prasad, this was great. If anybody has any questions about this, we'll give you some contact information to follow up on business continuity. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for sharing some of your wisdom on business continuity.
Thank you, Alan.
Prasad, thank you so much for your insights today. We've been having conversations around business continuity, digital transformation, and how organizations are responding to the current crisis. Please check out the other videos in the series and join us for more conversations on this topic. Thanks, Prasad.